Side Hustle Show 146, Growing Your Income Pie, Blogging, Freelancing, and Making Your Own Luck.
Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, where aspiring part-time entrepreneurs learn how to turn their side hustle dreams into reality. Because your 9 to 5 may make you a living, but your 5 to 9 makes you alive. And now, your host, Nick Loper.
What's up? Nick Loper here. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, where it's all about ideas, action, and turkey. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Thank you so much for tuning in today, wherever you may be joining me from. Today, I'm joined by Lauren Bowling from LB and themoneytree.com. Stick around to hear how she built her blog from the ground up and now earns up to $650 per post, and how she took her freelance writing side hustle and turned it into a full-time content marketing agency called Beehive Content. Now, I'm first met Lauren at FinCon back in September, and was really impressed with her story and her hustle, especially the part about developing multiple income streams and really growing that income pie. That's all. I've got pie on the brain since it's Thanksgiving now. It's all part of her recipe for financial success. All the links and notes from this conversation are at sidehustlenation.com/pie.
Content and social media specialist, but I ran the social media channels and blog for this technology startup here in Atlanta. And then I was also doing copywriting for, in a startup, you have to wear lots of hats. So I was writing copy for all of our marketing initiatives. And I worked on a small team with a graphic designer, and she already was side hustling with the intention of turning that into a full-time business down the road.
Okay.
And it worked out for her to pitch her graphic design client that she also had a copywriting service add-on as well. And something happened with her copywriter, and she approached me and was like, hey, do you want some extra work on the side? And at the time I was about to buy my first home and renovate. And so I was like, sure, I'll do it.
Okay.
And
wow.
That's how that started. And I was thinking about this today, preparing for this podcast. My very first client 2.5 years ago, she's still with me. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool.
And through that coworker graphic design connection, did you have any, well, since you were doing it for a day job, you had some some semblance of like your self-worth in this area? Because it's like an intimidating thing to stick your flag in the sand and say, yes, I will do that.
Yeah, actually, no, because my background, I'd been to New York, tried to be an actress. I worked as an administrative assistant and then started the blog and used the blog to get into copywriting when I moved back home to Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
So I knew, I think, in startups, you kind of take a lower salary, but I had no idea kind of what I should be charging hourly, especially being so new. So that was definitely a trial and error process, was figuring out, how much am I worth? And luckily this girl, the graphic designer, my friend Octavia, kind of told me very honestly what someone could command. She wasn't trying to, make more money for herself. Mm-hmm. So that was a good starting point, but that was actually really confusing. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. She's like, how much do you want? I'm like, $1 million?
Well, just for the sake of comparison, or for the sake of an example, what is that rate? Because you see people, obviously you can buy articles on Fiverr, or you can go all the way up to, pay thousands of dollars for professionally, journalists and stuff like that. So where does someone start? I
started at $30 an hour, and that was very close to hourly what you broke out my salary into.
Okay.
Now that I run my own firm, I charge between $60 and $85 an hour, just depending on what the project is and what it kind of looks like. So definitely a lot of growth in 2 years, but it's been very much like climbing up a mountain. Like you raise your prices a little bit here, and then you can raise them a little bit here, in a couple months.
Yeah. And it's hourly based instead of per article, per deliverable. I've seen people do it a couple different ways.
Yes and no. I recently made a switch to sort of productizing my services, and it is a flat rate, but it's based on sort of this hourly figure I have in my head and how long I think it will take me.
Okay.
But it's a flat project fee. You pay it, and then, that's it.
Okay. So working at the startup, doing this, landing your first client, what comes next? You say like, hey, this is kind of fun to do on the side. I could do this more. Where does it grow from there? What was the most effective way to land more clients on the freelance side?
On the freelance side, because I was working, renovating a home, running a blog, and then I had one freelance client, I kind of sat and waited for other things to find me just because I was concerned with having things on my plate. But then once the stuff with the house kind of calmed down, I was like, hey, this is like pretty good money. These people are really nice. It's great. It's always great to have an extra stream of income, working in a full-time job. No matter where you work, you're always kind of worried, especially in the startup life. What could happen? Will this end? Like, is the company going to go under? That type of thing. So I waited for things to find me, but then it sort of inspired me to start making more money in other aspects of my life, like on my blog, offering services through the blog, sponsored content, working with brands, that type of thing. So really one side hustle became others that were different but sort of related.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that the blog kind of feeds into this. Like I always say, like, hey, blog for the sake of the practice of writing, like it's a creative outlet. At least that's what started for me. And then with the blog itself, so it was kind of a finance focused site, like about, your money journeys. How did it start out?
Yes, I worked as an administrative assistant at a hedge fund in New York City. That's where this interest in personal finance came from. And I moved back home and I was unemployed. And I wanted to start a blog just as a hobby to keep me busy, to fill up my time until I could find another job. But I didn't want to start, not to knock lifestyle sites, but I just didn't think that fit with me and my interests. And I was still sort of learning a lot more about personal finance. So I was like, I'm going to write about this. So me and my girlfriends, like maybe we can talk more about money because they see me writing about it. And actually got this question in another interview I did last week. They asked, why did you keep going with blogging? Because it's been 3 years now, back when you weren't getting paid and no one was reading. And it was because I was blogging as my full-time job. It was a way for me to learn about blogging in my personal life and apply it to my job. And then whatever I learned in my job, I put across to my blog. And so it was really more of a learning experience before it ever became a stream of income. I coach a handful of clients who have blogs and they kind of want to take it to the next level, and they get very discouraged very early on. And I have to say, you have to have another reason for doing this besides making money. Otherwise, it's never going to work.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I tend to advise people look at your blog as a marketing channel for some business behind the scenes or something like that. So, but hey, 3 years deep into it, it has turned into a monetized property for you. What have been the biggest traffic drivers in kind of accelerating this thing?
Referral traffic from other bigger news sites, getting mentioned in mainstream media has been huge. Networking with other bloggers, SEO.
Well, that sounds great. Oh, slow down. So how are you getting these? Oh, I just got mentioned in the press. That doesn't just happen,
No, you have to be very proactive. I'm sure you've heard of helpareporterout.com. I think it's 3 times a day. The email newsletter comes to your inbox and it has a list of journalists and people looking for sources to mention in online content. And sometimes you'll find a print publication or two.
Yes. I was just in Fast Company today, thanks to Help a Reporter.
No, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. So it's like, I tend to get overwhelmed with like the 3 emails a day and end up deleting most of them, but it can still be it's a cool connection platform between journalists and potential sources, you.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you want to save time with it, because it can get very overwhelming reading it 3 times a day and pitching, I suggest people just pitch for things that they are absolutely a perfect fit for, because otherwise your email's just going to go in the trash.
Yeah.
So that's how I think 90% of my press opportunities have come strictly from Help a Reporter Out.
Okay.
And then other times I've pitched journalists on Twitter, or had a friend or fellow blogger who got featured somewhere and then emailed them and was like, hey, who do you know that I can reach out to? Because I'm doing something similar down the road and would love exposure for XYZ. So, I mean, don't be afraid to piggyback on other people to make it happen, especially if you don't directly compete.
Okay. So how often do you post?
I post twice a week. Lately, it's been, I write everything, but usually it's 1 time a week. It's a finance article, me and my story, and then on Thursdays, it's usually brand sponsored content, and it's still my writing and my point of view, and there's still nuggets of knowledge within the article, but they are paid for by a company or a brand.
Okay. How do you go about getting like these sponsored posts? Because these can pay big money.
The first step is putting together a media kit that talks about you and your blog, your traffic stats. The cuter it can kind of look, the better. If, you're a female blogger, male blogger, not cute, but it can't just be a Word doc in that sense.
Okay, there has to be some design to it. I can go find somebody to make a cute media kit for me.
To elevate what you're doing a little bit. So you have that in your back pocket. You can either pitch people, just blanket, like try to reach out via the online form and say, hey, at the top of your pitch, can you forward me to the marketing department, and you put in the subject line blogger inquiry or blogger sponsorship. I've had a handful come through that way. I participate in affiliate ad networks. And even though I don't do a ton of affiliate marketing, it still says on my profile that I take sponsored content. But really, the more you can do to drive traffic and exposure for your site, the PR, the social media, the guest posting, the more visible you're going to be to brands. And that's exciting for them. So then they'll often reach out and approach you.
Do you find there's like a going rate based on, the number of page views per month or number of email subscribers or something like that?
I haven't, and I think it's all sort of subjective. I know obviously the more traffic you have, the more you can command for a post. For the sake of transparency, I'll just say I used to charge like $300 or $400, and now I charge $650. Okay. But that's been just in the last 3 months or so as my traffic's kind of climbed. I know other bloggers who charge $1,100. I know some who charge $1,500.
Can you give us the ballpark of what the traffic is like at that $650 rate?
Yeah, I have between 40 and 50,000 page views a month.
Okay.
Which I guess for like a female focused finance site is big, but I know that for others it's comparatively small, but
that's a lot of, that's still a lot of traffic. So that's,
thank you. It's been 3 years in the making.
I know, an overnight success, 3 years in the making. That's awesome. One of like my conflicts, and maybe this is like more internal than anything else. Like, do you feel like ever I'm selling out my readers who've been there from the very, very beginning? Like if now half of my content is sponsored posts?
It's definitely something that I think about, which is why I really try, even if I'm tired or something's going on in my life, to always have that sort of 1-to-1 ratio. So in a week, even if you're not digging the sponsored content, there is a message from me that's just for free that you don't have to do anything, because that's very important to me. And that also plays into how you can kind of command more, because I only have 4 in a month. And so, if a brand wants it, they're going to have to pay for it.
Gotcha. Interesting. So for aspiring bloggers or people who are, maybe they have their blog, they have a little bit of traffic. What did it start out just like, hey, this is a company that I think would be a good fit for my audience, or did they reach out to you? How does that relationship come about?
In the beginning, if working with brands or reviewing products is something you want to do, you often, like I used to review products for free on my site. Not that they sent me anything, just products that I liked. And I put it on my site. And so then when I pitched, I had examples of my writing specific to product reviews. And then when I wanted to sort of start working with bigger brands, I had this top 10 list, this dream list of who I wanted to work with and what would kind of fit in. And after time, you'll be able to see what your most popular posts are and kind of where your niche is. And then I went and I pitched, and sometimes my dream team list found me, but oftentimes it was just me reaching out, either meeting them at a conference and then following up with an email that was like, I'd love to really work with you. I've worked with this brand at this point. So definitely always mentioning things that you've done in the past that might be applicable. Even if it's not directly related, it communicates a willingness to work with brands, and people really like that.
Yeah, and I can kind of snowball from there. I think the idea of having a $2,500 side hustle just from sponsored content is pretty compelling. So that's thank you for sharing the information on that.
My freelance writing business was my side hustle. Now it's my full-time business. I'd like to replace it with another side hustle because I've always kind of had 2 to 3.
Yeah, you diversify those income streams. I love it.
Oh, absolutely. My income pie, I call it my income pie, like what you look at in Excel, is crazy. There's always like 3 or 4 or sometimes 6 little pieces of pie based on where the money every month comes from. And some people might think it's crazy or strange, but I like being so diversified because it relieves a lot of the pressure on everything. Like, it means I don't have to take something on the blog if I don't want to. It means that if a client needs to take a break, it's not dire. And I think for me, that allows me to be creative and think big and not so much worry about where my next check's coming from.
Yes, I'm happy to hear you say that, because there's so much focus on focus on the one thing, on the essentialism movement and stuff like that. It's like, well, maybe my one thing is building a diversified stream of income.
Exactly. This is the place where that I think we're kindred spirits in that respect.
So it sounds like the Beehive content stuff has kind of taken off. Is there a particular industry or niche that you're focusing on for that content marketing service?
Yes. So because I run LB in the Money Tree and I write so much about personal finance for that, I get really burnt out talking and writing about money all the time. So a lot of my clients are in technology and healthcare, which is where I started. And I think that's a natural shift because most of my portfolio pieces are from these full-time jobs and tech companies that I had. And so people feel comfortable working with me because I kind of get that industry.
Okay.
And the good thing is that startups and small technology companies and healthcare organizations, they don't always have an in-house marketing team or a copywriter on staff. And so there's always typically that need. And I can fill it and be a contract position and help them out. And it's very symbiotic.
Okay, so focusing on the companies that don't have the in-house marketing but are big enough to understand they have a need for the marketing, are you like proactively approaching them by like doing a sample piece and say, this is what I can create for you, or is like just pointing to your portfolio and say, this is the stuff I've created in the past?
I hesitate to do anything for free. I did that a lot back when I first started.
Okay.
But yeah, now I have my beehivecontent.com, my portfolio's there, my prices. And since I've moved more towards productized services, like they can go on the website and they say, hey, this month we want a press release and an email campaign and this and that. And I'll send them an invoice and it works out great. And it's very clean and simple. Whereas before it was, we'll pay you for 10 hours a month and then you kind of work it off, and it was very sloppy and hard to corral. So that's been a nice shift. Yeah. But a lot of my business comes from word of mouth referrals, which I'm proud of because it means my clients are happy and they like me. And then also my LinkedIn profile. I've had a lot of people find me through that.
Oh, okay. You're huge on LinkedIn, huh?
I guess so. I don't know if people are searching for what I offer specifically on LinkedIn, but I've had like 3 or 4 people find me, good paying clients through that. So maybe make your LinkedIn profile keyword rich.
Yeah, if you haven't dusted off your LinkedIn in a while, maybe time to take another look at that. That's a question that I do get a lot. Is like, hey, should I put my side hustle on LinkedIn? Because obviously my employer is going to see that, my peers are going to see that. Was that an issue for you starting out?
No, and I think it depends largely on what the side hustle is, because I worked in marketing, digital marketing, and then I had a blog. I think it was people enjoyed seeing my skills sort of function in real time on this thing that was my own. Everyone I've ever met was really supportive. But if you have, like, I have a friend who has a sort of a cake making business, and then she works for the government and they're, obviously not so supportive. And I don't think she'd put that on LinkedIn. So I think it just kind of depends on what your side hustle is and if the skills are applicable to what you do during the day.
See, those two seem pretty unrelated. Like, I don't think the cake making is a conflict of interest with your government job.
Maybe just like a little note at the bottom, like, everyone's supposed to have that sort of fun skills section of their resume. Like
cake making.
Professional cake maker, yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of shifting towards more productized service, which I think is a good trend that's happening. Do you find people is there a subscription model, like a recurring model, where it's like, every month I need a weekly blog post or something like that?
I have a few who are on that model, but mostly I think it's because I do work with a lot of startups or people who don't maybe always have ongoing marketing needs. People like to pop in and they like to pop out.
Okay.
I have income goals that I like to hit, but for the most part, it's an as you need it type thing.
Okay. And on the team, it sounds like, now $70, $80 an article, you've got enough margin built in where you could hire other people underneath you to deliver some of the work. Have you started to do that?
Yes, I have very recently. And that was an interesting thing to get over because I felt maybe a little bit of guilt that I'm going out and I'm selling these clients and it has in the contract that the article may not be written by me, but because I'm usually working with people here in Atlanta where I live, we get to know one another, and I feel kind of bad if they're expecting like the Lauren Bowling magic or mojo.
Okay.
But I had to have a long, hard talk with myself and realize that I was never going to be able to scale or make the kind of money that I wanted to make unless I started hiring some help.
Right. There comes a ceiling, and I think you've done it smartly to call it Beehive content and not Lauren Bowling content, and say, hey, look, these are the deliverables, right? It doesn't really matter who writes it as long as it's good,
And I'll look at it and edit it. And so by the end, it has my thumbprint on it, and that sort of helps me feel more okay with it as well.
Cool. Yeah. At least you have the final quality control check before it goes out to the customer. Well, cool. Anything else that people like words of wisdom for people looking to get started as a freelancer or anything like that?
My biggest tip would be if you have aspirations, even if you're small right now, but you have big aspirations to turn your side hustle full time or to start making money off your blog or whatever it is, to take it seriously from the beginning, maybe have a process that makes it seem like you're a legitimate business owner rather than just sort of flying by the seat of your pants all the time, which is what I did. And then I realized very quickly when my side hustle became full time that I couldn't treat it as casually as I did before. And so it's been a lot of rework that I could have saved myself a lot of time if I just treated it like a legitimate business from the beginning.
Like creating that process documentation and stuff like that.
Maybe getting an invoicing system so it's easier at tax time. Little things. If it seems like a good idea, just do it because you'll definitely need it as you grow.
Yeah, that's something that has bit me a couple times, like with the shoe business, especially when it finally came time to begin that hiring process, like outsourcing and bringing in somebody to help me out. It was really frustrating to try and explain my process because I've been doing it like for the last 4 years or something. Like, come on, why don't you get this? And I was like, your instructions suck because you have been doing this for the last 4 years. You don't need the instructions. And even like on the creating the podcast, it was I've screwed it up enough times and I actually still haven't like created the step-by-step like process documentation where it's like, oh, now you've got to split the stereo track to mono and you got to export this and like it's like, I've done it 140 something times, but I still screwed it up a couple times. I was like, I should probably just like have the checklist and go by it. Go by it each week and not have to worry about screwing it up. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to call that, take it seriously, treat it like a business as your number one tip. You guys can check her out at LB and the Money Tree. That's B like the bug. And Beehive, is it beehivecontent.com?
Yes, beehivecontent.com.
Awesome. Lauren, thanks so much. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
This edition of the Side Hustle Show is brought to you by Ting, Ting. Ting is mobile that makes sense. Since making the switch from Verizon, our average bill has gone from $125 a month for 2 lines down to about $51, a little over $51 per month. And we're actually above average for Ting users. They say the average bill is just $23 per line. So even though we're spending more data than the average customer, we still put $1,500 back into our pockets so far since making that switch. Now, Ting operates on the Sprint network, so you can bring any Sprint-enabled device, iPhones included, and keep your same phone number, and you only pay for the text, minutes, and data that you use. So if you visit sidehustlenation.com/Ting, you're going to get a $25 statement credit towards your first month of service or towards a new device. And actually, if you're listening over the Black Friday weekend, I think they're going to up that to a $50 credit off your first month of service. And if you're still under contract, they're even going to pay up to $75 of your early termination fee to incentivize that switch. So that's sidehustlenation.com/Ting for your free $25 sign-up credit or $50 over the Black Friday weekend. So back to this episode with Lauren. My biggest takeaways from this conversation, number one was keeping the business in balance with her life. She specifically mentioned, hey, I was already working full-time. I had one freelance client. I didn't necessarily feel the need, and I was running the blog, and I didn't necessarily feel the need to go out and rush to find more business. I kind of let that occur naturally, or, as she was ready to take on more projects. She had a home renovation project going on as well. And one of the other takeaways that I wanted to bring up was the fact that, now she commands $650 per post on her blog, and she joked, yeah, it's taken 3 years to get there. So this is, like she said, an overnight success, 3 years in the making, but there's that consistent process of putting out the content, of writing, of, creating this asset, this brand that now allows her to earn some pretty significant side hustle income from that. I also liked how the blog has turned into these other opportunities where she started out with the attitude of, hey, this is going to be a learning experience. I'm going to learn about writing content online, understanding that was a valuable skill, and look, that it's leveraged into quite a few other opportunities. And the final takeaway that I wanted to bring up was her multiple income stream strategy, her income pie, right? And one thing we didn't touch on too much during the call was her real estate investment side hustle, which actually started out with her renovating her own home and then renting out an extra room in that house. It's just like a very low barrier to entry to get started in real estate, and diversifying that income stream even further. So, like she said, kindred spirits in that regard. Now, you can find all the notes and links from this episode at sidehustlenation.com/pie. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I want to send out a reminder to practice your OMG, practice your 1 minute gratitude. This is a micro habit that's scientifically proven to improve happiness. It's science. I read it on the internet. It must be true. But how I implement this is just a daily email that comes in my inbox at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And it says, hey, it says two things. Actually, it asks me what I get done today. And so I can fill in, all of the work that I did, all of the things that I crossed off that makes me feel productive. And it asks me, hey, what are you grateful for? And then I can fill in, it can be anything, like, I took the dog on a walk. I went to Starbucks with my wife. Like, our neighbors had little rocks on their patio and they glued googly eyes onto them. Like, anything that makes you smile. Like, that's what I write down in that box. And now I have this huge library of archived content, gratitude content that I can go back and look through at any time if I'm feeling down. Be like, oh, now I remember this is what's good about it. So I highly recommend setting up a 1 minute gratitude habit, the OMG. I've got talked a little bit about that in the Thanksgiving episode for last year. So I'll link that up in the show notes at sidehustlenation.com/pie as well. Now, before we wrap up, one thing that I am definitely grateful for is all of you, all Side Hustle Nation listening out there, and specifically the people who have spent the time to leave an iTunes review. I've got a handful more that have come in over the last couple months. So I have 5 stars from Electric Eye. Don, the Idea Guy, says 5 stars. Every episode just gets better and better. Create your own success playlist by picking and choosing the topics that you want to cover. Don, thank you so much for that. Gabe, level 9, says excellent real world advice, 5 stars. And Kay Shivler says, I'm already self-employed, but Nick makes me want to look for a side hustle. Thank you guys for that. This one is probably my favorite. The New Bull Moose says, ballin', 5 stars. If you want to stack that cheddar, listen to the Side Hustle with Nick Lober. You won't be disappointed. Thank you guys so much for that. And then I have one last one. POS Workspace says 5 stars, refreshing and logical. Thank you guys so much. If you want to drop in your own iTunes review, you can do so at sidehustlenation.com/iTunes. Thank you so much for listening. You are Side Hustle Nation. Have an awesome holiday. Until next time, let's go out there, make something happen, and I'll catch you in the next edition of the Side Hustle Show. Hustle on.
Thanks for listening to the Side Hustle Show at www.sidehustlenation.com.